This is a brand new thing here in episode 39 on the Intentional Documentary podcast, the story of the month. One thing I want you to get out of this podcast is little sparks of tiny stories you may be overlooking in your own life so that you can respond to them better. So I'm going to start sharing these tiny stories that we've published on Fearless and Framed, on our journal, or that listeners like you submit to us. Sound good? Enjoy the story. Hey you're listening to the Intentional Documentary podcast. So glad to have you. Around here, I'm gushing over the stories behind the pictures that we freaking love of our own lives. You know, the ones we hold as high value and iconic, because this is where photography meets real life. I'm your host, Marie Moss, and I believe that the best way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Through insightful conversations with photographers, I'll explore preserving life with your camera and using what lights you up to grow your brand. Let's get started. So today's story of the month comes from photographer Dreama Spence. She is also the director of stories around here. So if you want to publish a story on Fearless and Framed, you'll probably connect with her. We published this story in the fall of 2018, and I'll link to it in this episode's show notes. Dreama visited her family in Arkansas that she hadn't seen in over a decade, and of course, she had her camera in tow like any photographer would. And here's what Dreama told us. Every morning, us and the kids began with the continental breakfast and then heading off to Uncle Perry's house to scoop him up before heading out for the daily activity he'd planned. After the second day of pulling into his driveway, it hit me. This is something he does every day. There he was, sitting in his chair with his morning cup of coffee, his Follow Jesus polo that he has in just about every color, and of course, his ball cap, as he calls it. Beyond what can be seen in the photograph are the little details I learned of him while there. He lives at the end of a cul-de-sac, and not a busy one either, but this is his TV. For breakfast every morning, he eats a Nutter Butter. He has a love for all things Walmart. After all, he is in Bentonville, the home of Wally World. I have no doubt that his neighbors think of Mr. Stamps sitting out in his garage watching the day go by, or that his face is the first thing that greets company as they pull into the driveway. This is forever ingrained in my mind. Gosh, I love that story, and you can see the photograph Dreama Spence made right on our site. Visit fearlessandframed.com/039 to navigate there. So my question to you is this. Maybe you don't have an uncle like Dreama's Uncle Perry, but who's important in your life that you could acknowledge better? Maybe it's another family member. Maybe it's someone in your own neighborhood that stands out to you. Who is it that you could look at that vivid mental image in your mind of who they are and put that into a tangible format while you can, whether that's in a picture or another format? Do that this week. Then show us what you got. Tag me in on Instagram, use @fearlessandframed, or email us at stories@fearlessandframed.com, and we may just select you to get published on the Fearless and Framed journal on our site, or to be the next story of the month for the podcast here. I'll talk to you soon.